Starting. And we are live. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I'm your host, David Papiden.
I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast and hangout in search of a more palatable political ferment. Tonight this is February 12th, 2019. We are here to talk about essentially what the hell is going on in Virginia and the state government. We are joined by Haley, Mike, and Tim. Thank you guys for joining us, first of all.
Absolutely.
Hey.
Cool. Thank you guys for being here. So there's been some scandals afoot.
Yeah,
James, can you explain
apparently
a little bit?
And I'm going to do my best. Apparently, in the last couple of weeks, I would say less than 2 weeks ago, but I really don't want to be locked
A couple
down
weeks ago,
on that
recently.
exactly.
Sure.
There was an accusation that came out from a conservative / pretty far right-wing blog / whatever the hell news source that said that Governor Northam, who Ralph Northam, was appeared in blackface in a medical school yearbook, and that didn't obviously play well, but it was met immediately by him admitting that he was in the photograph. And then the next day, resignation calls came up. And then he said, I wasn't in the photograph, actually, but I did wear blackface. It was just during the Michael Jackson.
It was really weird, right?
Yeah,
Because at first he was, the first thing I heard about it was, okay, Virginia Governor Northam has been sort of tagged in a photo from like 1984 or something like that in medical school in blackface sitting next to a person in the Klan. He apologized. I'm sorry for anybody this might have hurt. And like within a day, he's like, no, that wasn't me.
Yeah, and he said it wasn't me. And then he's like,
but I did do blackface.
Yeah, but I did.
But it was Michael Jackson, so it's okay.
Yeah, right. Like, and then he's like, well, I'm not going to resign.
Let me move on.
And we started with that, and that was already enough. And then shortly thereafter, the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, was accused of sexual assault.
Yeah.
And I mean, as if that weren't enough,
right?
A few days later.
But hang on a second, that wasn't a new accusation. It was one that had sort of been circuiting through.
Okay,
kind of thing.
So it was reported to the Washington Post about a year ago, and the Washington Post couldn't corroborate it, so they didn't publish it. But but the accuser did go to them first, saying, "Hey, apparently she performed oral sex on him at his insistence or something. It's some Democratic National Convention or something like that." The details are a little hazy for me on that end. However, shortly thereafter, for some reason, the Attorney General came out. The Virginia Attorney General came out and said, hey, I was in blackface too. Yeah. Which kind of left us all wondering, what the hell is happening in Virginia?
Because see, all right, I'll have to explain a little context here and some of my own bias. Okay, I live in Tennessee. I've been living in Tennessee a long time. I'm not from Virginia natively. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I grew up mostly in Virginia. And for a long time, I thought they were pretty safe from this kind of shit. But apparently that's not true.
Virginia is a southern state, and not only is Virginia,
it's not just a southern state, but like let's kill all our heroes here. Like, don't think just because you're from the north or you're from whatever that you're safe from this kind of crap. Sure. Generally speaking, because people are ignorant all over the world. Like, you're not safe from that just because you're not in the South.
Sure. You know, but you have all these Democratic. You have a lot of Democratic leaders who are more and more moving further and further to the left, and they're enjoying this whole Republicans are racist, Donald Trump's a racist thing, and all of this, and then their demons are starting to come out of the closet.
Right. And so I want to not look at this through a partisan lens, but like Virginia, though, like, what the hell are you doing?
I believe our show is entitled "Okay, Virginia, what the fuck?"
Yeah, or what the fuck, Virginia? Yeah, basically. So, before I get into sort of my own take on what's going on here, I'd like to hear from the other people joining us tonight. We can start anywhere. Who wants to sort of offer their fermented opinion first?
Gentlemen, y'all feel free to start.
Silence.
Okay. Yeah, I'll jump in. This is a very not aged opinion in terms of fermenting, but you know, I've always voted Republican. I try not to define myself through party, but
sure,
it's what it is. So on this, with all three of them, I kind of have my personal view and then maybe what I think is the politically smart move. So the blackface stuff, I mean, I don't, I'm struggling not to be insensitive, but, something that happened back in the 80s, like as much as I don't have a lot of love for Democrats, I don't know if that has to be something that makes them resign. I mean, I think that we live in an age where too often we're more concerned with words that are said and an appearance than actual actions, So if they've never done anything to discriminate against people and no one's complaining that they're, racist or animist towards people of other colors, I don't necessarily think that he should resign. I mean, I think a meaningful apology, and he needs to clarify whether it's him or not in the context. But my personal opinion starting out is I don't think that doing something stupid or offensive, 25 whatever years ago means automatically that he's got to resign or get impeached. That's my thought. And I like how you said he's basically being tagged in a photo from the 80s. That's exactly what it is. So that was kind of my initial thought on both the governor and then I reading between the lines, I assume that the AG came out with that because maybe the same source got a photo from his yearbook and he assumed it was going to come out, so he got in front of it. But
sure,
I think absent any misdeeds, I think that maybe we need to get to a climb in place where we can acknowledge that all of us do offensive things. And I'm not trying to justify that action, but does it require resignation? I personally don't think so.
Mike, do you have any thoughts? I'll go ahead and punt to you if Haley said she wanted to kind of reserve.
Yeah, I mean, I for the most part, I for the most part agree with Tim on this. I mean, I don't believe he should be necessarily forced into a resignation. The issue really at hand is what type of confidence are the people of Virginia going to have now in this guy, that especially the way he handled it, because he could not handle this any worse. He came out and said, look, it was me, my fault. I'm not like that anymore. I've learned. I think most people would have been, all right, you're wrong. That was a racist picture, or whatever you want to word it, but at least you came clean. And the way he handled it was just awful. And it's really hard for the people to be confident in a governor that not only is a potential racist, but the way he handled being caught, so to speak, is what really got to me more than the picture itself. Now, granted, the picture also had someone dressed as a Klansman in it. That was definitely the most triggering aspect of it. I mean, blackface is wrong, especially today in the 80s. I don't know. I was a little tiny kid then. I don't know what the society was like with blackface, but a Klansman, I mean, even when I was a kid, I knew that's not okay. You might as well dress as Hitler.
Mike, can I punt a question back to you if you guys don't mind? He said since then, Northam. Northam.
Sorry.
Northam. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know.
It's okay. Yeah.
Northam said since then that he was not in that picture. Now, initially he said he was, and now he's saying he's not.
Yeah, there was another report. As soon as he said that, there was a report. I don't know how it was fact checked, whatever you want to say, but I read it on both left and right wing sources that the editors at that med school back then said that that it was his page of the yearbook, and that the students picked what was going on their page, which would indicate he chose that picture on his yearbook, which is
that seems strange to me since
If he's not
I've
in,
seen
I mean,
a whole-
but at the end of the day, the dude has a picture on his yearbook page of a guy wearing blackface and a Klansman.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah,
sugarcoating.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the question is whether or not he's in the picture, and I mean, I've seen.
I mean, regardless, I
seen the
put
whole
a Klansman photo on my yearbook page.
Yeah.
I think that would send a bad message.
Yeah,
I would sue the school if they did that to me.
Sure, and that's what I'm
Exactly.
wondering, and this is why I asked the question, is that I've actually seen the whole scan of the whole page because it was just a little portion. It seems more like a school-based, universal thing, which looks bad for the school. So I would see why I would want that, but it doesn't seem like it's dedicated to him at all. I don't see his mention or anything else.
But is it
on the
his
whole page? It's like
specific
top.
page?
It's like a top third of the page, and he's not in the rest of it, and he's not mentioned in the rest of it.
But is it his? And I'm only asking this to clarify, and I'm doing this on the fly. Like, is this like you're flipping through? Oh, here's Jimmy John and his yearbook page in the yearbook, and it's a collage of shit that's relevant to him. Then we turn over, and now it's Northam, and then look, blackface in the Klan hood.
I don't think so, though. Based on what I've seen, at least, is that there were like little captions for like this picture up here in the top third is these two people, and then this.
But it's not his specific yearbook page.
No, I don't think so, but I don't know.
Okay,
I don't want to say that
that's
either.
fine.
I've just seen a printout of it, and I don't believe
It's not a hill I'm trying to
mentioned-
die on. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify there too. Is I don't really know what the hell's going on, but he's denying that he's in the photo.
Yeah.
So the question that I have in response to that is it possible he's in the KKK outfit? Like,
Yeah, and that's what makes this such a difficult deal. I mean, I don't know what the laws of impeaching a state governor are in Virginia, but I mean, obviously when it comes to like a president, it has to be, misdemeanor and other offenses, quote unquote, from the Constitution.
And I'll say this because I don't know a lot about Virginia specifically, but I know that state laws are different. A lot of state laws, as far as their governors are concerned, have language that's similar to, say, like England, that have votes of no competence.
I was going to say, if you're going to hate anything,
where you can remove somebody for something that's
he didn't
not
commit a
beneficial.
crime.
Yeah, but it's not representative of the office.
Yeah.
And I think I would imagine Virginia's probably got something similar in what he's worried about.
Virginia's pretty purple, so I mean, there's been a tussle like the last, I think, several election cycles. We've seen Democratic gains, but it's been purple. There's been a good struggle in Virginia for as long as I can remember. So like, that we're getting here with a sort of a righty-ish Democrat becoming governor, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. And the fact that there's controversy that could set back, if you're looking at this from the Democratic perspective and what they want in terms of political gains, like this can be devastating.
Yeah.
If we're going to end up punting back to Republican, who, if there's anybody left standing after all the dust has settled after this thing, with the Republican janitor who becomes acting governor after this.
I would ask Haley, do you have any opinions on this one?
Well, I mean, if anything, one of the things that I've learned from this is I didn't necessarily get too deep into the actual specifics of the Virginia. I just know like the top three people. It's like the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the AG. Is that right?
Yes, they've all been in scandal in the last.
But and so like it's only been a year since Charlottesville, and I don't know. I wasn't aware. I've learned a lot recently about like the history of blackface in America.
And that's kind of important too. I mean,
it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, well, it is really disgusting.
Yeah,
it's something that, yes, if you've never known about it or studied it or something, I'm glad that it got brought to the forefront, I guess. But I'm sorry, Haley. What I was asking was, did you have an opinion on what he should do, Northam especially, like?
Well, I mean, and I think that like in part in making that decision, I think we, should try to understand like how offensive it is and what is the history and everything. Because like, I'll admit one of my first thoughts is like, should like Robert Downey Jr. have been like he wore blackface in Tropic Thunder, was that?
Yeah.
But then I started like learning
But he got called out.
Like, and then I like, like you remember like, oh man, I remember seeing cartoons as a child that, yeah, yeah,
that's
and
really
there's like a specific stereotype. So I mean, I personally think if like in the 80s you were, doing that kind of stuff, like, and you got caught with this, like that was pretty bad.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
right. Oh, hang on. Go ahead, Haley. Finish.
But like, I haven't looked at, I've only seen that one image of, like, if this is a picture of him and he's either the dude wearing blackface or the Klansman, those are two really bad options.
Not great. Really. Which one do you want to be?
So, and I think he knows whether or not he's in the picture. And, I mean, I guess like if I was him and I knew that the answer is yes, I'm either the dude in blackface or the Klansman, I step aside. But then, but I haven't actually really thought on like, I just know that like it's either like a sexual assault or a blackface. Wait, is it all blackface? All
no,
people are black?
No. Well, Justin Fairfax, who's a lieutenant governor, is black, and he's accused of sexual assault by 2 different women now.
But so he didn't do blackface.
Sorry.
But the other one after him, is he the one who's next in line?
Yes, and he openly admitted it.
And so he's the one who's next. And okay.
And Governor Northam, Governor Northam has said that he did do blackface. He's just not in that picture. His blackface was for a Michael Jackson tribute.
And you know what? That's perfectly fine if it's true. I'm saying like if I were him and if I knew that I was in that picture, so maybe he's not lying, I would resign.
Yeah. Tim, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, a question that comes to mind, and I'll admit I hadn't really thought of the point that was raised earlier is, if you're the governor, what is this action? Can your constituents really be confident in you? But to me, this also raises the question is, what is the precedent that's going to be set here? Are we now, because I think we're in a pretty sensitive environment on both sides. You're kind of looking to use things. Are we now setting the precedent that anything you've ever done from 30 years ago means you have to resign or get impeached?
No.
I think it's easy for us to assume racial animus, concur that it's obviously offensive, especially in today's understanding and a good understanding as we continue to make progress. My first thought of looking at the picture is I'm assuming that this was some sort of party where everybody was, I'm going out on a limb here, kind of a party where like everybody's intentionally wearing intentionally offensive costumes. I don't know that makes it better, but I don't know if we can look at a picture from the 80s and say, well, this guy's obviously racist and therefore he should step aside. I wonder where does it, what is the precedent that we're setting? And, this is going to become a real tit for tat politically where everybody's going to now be pulling all the yearbooks of every major political figures.
Right.
But that was kind of why I think like understanding the history of blackface was kind of an important, thing. Like
an important aspect.
That like it's definitely, so in an absolute vacuum, no, of course not. Like, but also like let's understand what mistake was made. And so I think that's an important aspect of it.
If I can jump on and sort of follow up from that, I think it's not so much it really to respond to what you're saying, Tim. I don't expect any politician, any person to be perfect and to have a history that is devoid of, what we might in, the present tense call moral failures. It's about the response. It's about how you deal with those flaws and imperfections. And I think in each of the three that we're looking at here, the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, you see a sort of drastically different responses. And I think our response to that should prescribe what follows forward. The governor, initial he did like the reverse Jughead defense. I don't know if you ever heard of the Jughead defense. Yes. It was like, he Jughead in a comic, he's sort of brought before like a fake, court or whatever for like not returning a library book. But at first he's like, well, what book? I don't go to the library. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I returned the book, and then, okay, maybe I returned the book late. And then like finally at the end of it, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I lost the book kind of thing. Like, and Northam has done this in reverse by first apologizing for what he did, and then backing up and not in the first
That's
one.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, my dad, who is a lawyer as well, amongst
there's a huge backpack for that one.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, and saying, he's done this in reverse by first, admitting culpability and apologizing in sort of like a really kind of mealy mouth way, and then backing up and being like, no, that wasn't me. But also I did blackface this other time. Can I moonwalk for you now?
Yeah, how bizarre is that press conference? That press conference is just bizarre.
It's so weird.
Like, what if he is telling the truth? What if he's not in that picture? Like, what if he at first was like, I've totally worn blackface before, and he apologized immediately, and then he like saw the picture. That is what happened.
Yeah.
Hang on.
But that's what's weird to me is like, I don't know. I'm not saying he's necessarily lying, but like, how do you admit to standing in blackface next to a guy in a Klan hood? I want to be.
But that's the point. And if he's not in the photo,
whether or not I was in it.
Hang on, stop. Haley's question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
But Haley's question was, what if he never saw the picture before he gave the response? Bullshit. He definitely saw the picture.
I don't know. I don't know. I think the moment that you're accused of blackface, like what? And if you've done it, like, I need to get in front of this now.
And I asked this question, and I want to say this is that there was one specific source that cited it, and I can't remember the name of the thing, but it was like big right-wing news or something like that. It was some bullshit right-wing site that's become they're getting popularity because they're actually doing decent sourcing and coming out with shit to invoke against people who are Democrats. There is no way he didn't see the picture. The picture was in every article and every link that accused him of it within seconds. I mean, it didn't take long at all. When I saw it, it was through the New York Times or through WAPO or somebody like that. And it had been reported over like 50 times, and every one of them linked the same picture from the same site and gave the same site as the source. There is no way the governor of Virginia has aides that haven't looked this stuff up.
Right.
Also bosses don't look at everything.
Oh, come on.
But to expand on this, hang on a second. In reality, if I'm a person who dressed in blackface and stood next to a person in a Klan hood for a photo, I'm going to remember if I did that or not.
Well, I think you're probably going to remember if you wore it at all. You're probably going to remember the time dressed up as Michael Jackson.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and the idea that he knew that he wore blackface in the Michael Jackson
stoned out of his mind.
Yeah, he's in some Michael Jackson production and he's wearing blackface. All right, cool.
Icing on the cake.
Wait.
Icing on the cake with this too. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there was a commercial during the campaign when he was running for governor. I don't remember the name of his Republican opponent, but he ran a commercial that basically called this guy a racist. It was a kid, all these minority kids running from a truck that had his opponent's bumper sticker name on it.
Yeah,
basically implying he's a racist. And everybody on the left, everybody says, don't vote for the Republican. He's a racist. Vote for Durham. And here we are today.
Oh yeah, no,
I mean, actually, I think that was part of. If I get this wrong, someone correct me. But Gillespie, who's his opponent, ran on basically like MS-13 is bad and evil, and I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go around rounding up illegals like in my truck or whatever. Like that's my thing. Yeah. And Northam ran on I'm gonna be pro civil rights, anti-racism, blah blah blah, like all of that stuff. And now this comes out. It's not a good look.
I wanted to get into that. I still want to ask the question of, at least to respond to say that. Yeah, I guarantee he saw the photo before he issued a response. I mean, he didn't.
I'm kind of with Haley. Like, so let's recognize that we don't operate on we operate on a 24-second news cycle these days.
Yeah.
And someone who's the governor, I mean, I don't know if he's taught. I mean, he may not be Trump. He may not be tied to his smartphone, and he's in a meeting, right, or he's doing something, and then an aide comes up and is like, "Hey, sir, there's an article with the photo saying of you in blackface. We need a response now."
Yeah, I mean that's what I was told.
Oh crap! And then he thinks in his head like, "Well, I did do blackface once." So then they're all just like, panic mode. Let's get in front of this. Gotta apologize 100%. And then he actually looks at the article a couple hours later and is like, "Wait, that's
not a fucking chance."
I mean,
I don't know. It's like I don't know.
Totally possible.
That's quite plausible.
I want to say that I don't know if y'all have ever worked under someone who's a politician.
I've
done it a couple of times, and I want to tell you that when your staff runs up to you and says, "Hey, we have this bombshell. It's a problem," the first thing they say is, "What's the problem? Show me the problem." I mean, that's where your response comes from.
I've done trials, and I've seen, my bosses handle problems without knowing much.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think it's a bit different in that sense.
I mean, I think that it's, I don't know. I've seen
okay,
old attorneys do their thing at trial with very, just like reacting and.
But no, I mean, this gets back to points that made. If this is true, then why haven't we had any clarification? Like, why wasn't that press conference? Here's what happened. I mean, right? You would think he would say, "I issued this apology. I hadn't seen the photo."
Yeah,
exactly.
That he held a press conference and really didn't explain anything, and then
he didn't explain the photo. He didn't say he wasn't in the photo.
No, he said he wasn't in the photo, but he didn't explain why he initially said he was in the photo.
Yes.
I guess. Well, his attempt to explain it was saying, "But I did." I don't know.
His initial words were, "This was me. I did this, except I don't feel this way."
This is why because I did do it in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't try to moonwalk.
If I can add a mention to this, I listened to an interview with him after the fact, and it was on another podcast actually, but they were sort of listening to him go through this thing and sort of explain in just the most weird generic terms what happened, what his opinion is about race and the progress in Virginia, and he sounds exactly like the Family Guy, like Pepperidge Farm Remembers guy, like, and just the way he talks about it is just so disjointed and weird. And in Virginia we did away with racism, and we've made lots of progress. He sounds so like
we're also the capital of the Confederate States of America.
Well, and that's another thing that's been brought up. Is what he's based in Charlottesville, and there was like a what a lot of people who perceive as a very racist charged rally that resulted in someone being murdered.
Yeah.
It's just
less than that was like a year ago, So
what, if I may, to sort of springboard off of this. Oh, we have John has joined us. I picked up John from the other night watching him on was it Friends of Bible and Beer Consortium. He was there pontificating about various political issues. And I was like, this guy seems interesting.
Like a traditional Japanese screen. That's nice.
Yeah. John, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna pun an idea.
We're talking about Northam right now.
I'm gonna kind of pun an idea here that I think is maybe a little off the wall. But instead of the idea of resignation, the question kind of to me that I think of is when you're faced with this, say, let's assume that Northam is telling the truth, that he did this Michael Jackson blackface and he never did anything else. The question that I wonder about is, should he resign or not based on the idea of who is in the best position to combat racism and to push forward that way? Does he look at it in the sense of, I shouldn't resign because we're making progress in Virginia under the Democratic Party?
That was sort of his argument in that interview that I listened to.
That I want to be a champion going forward for racial equality, or, I mean, I wonder about that just in general.
Man, you barely
under that. So before before we knew more, one of my friends tweeted, and he's someone who's in the DC, that sort of environment. And he said that he truly believed that this was a guy who woke up in the morning and like looked in the mirror and was like, I need to like do better for people, and like was a good guy, utmost integrity, you know. And I assume that his tweet is based on like assuming that he is one of the two people in the photo. He was like, but you know, he's got to resign, even though I truly believe that about him. You know, he's got to resign.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and
I mean, I actually do think it might hinge on whether or not he's in the photo.
I mean, I still am going to stand on my position that I've worked for even local level politicians who aren't that stupid, who want to see where the source came from first before they say anything. Because he waited hours to respond. It's not like he responded instantly when it happened. He responded the next day. So, I mean,
do we know that? Like,
yes, I know we know that for a fact. That he responded the next day. He didn't respond right out of the gate. Justin Fairfax, on the other hand, the lieutenant governor, responded pretty damn quickly in like 2 a.m., you know, saying that's not me. I had nothing to do with that. That's bogus. No, Northam.
and what was he accused of?
Sexual assault.
Sexual assault ×2.
Well, he's now.
Now
So
times
what
two.
was he accused? What was he accused of?
He was accused of sexual assault.
No, but what was he accused of doing? That is a very general
He was
term.
accused of forcing oral sex on a woman who worked for the Democratic Party. That he was there at some either it was national level or state level. He took her back to a hotel room. She says that they were kissing, and that was consensual.
When did this happen?
2004.
Oh.
Okay. Anyway, he responded very quickly, saying that didn't happen. But my point is that the governor waited all of an entire evening to go from whenever this announcement happened until the next day to make a statement. And when he did so, he said that I was in that photo and I apologize. I feel like he saw the photo before he said anything. I mean, personally, that's just my opinion.
If that's what happened, if you like if he said that, then yeah,
there's no clarity on that. I mean, it sort of defies
but I mean,
logic.
like, when did he react to it, and what did he say?
Right, it defies logic that you would apologize for a photograph that you didn't actually see. You know that you're going to say that you were in it and you're sorry for whoever you hurt.
But it does make sense to apologize for putting on blackface.
I mean, generally speaking, of course.
If you know that you've done it.
So here's I guess the thing that I was trying to get into a minute ago, that there is, to me, what is more crucial is how each of these situations have been responded to. That Northam did a softball response and then retracted and then apologized for doing blackface at another occasion, which is really not saving at all. And it tells me just how out of touch and ignorant he comes across generally. The attorney general also admitted to doing blackface in high school. He said basically that he was ignorant and kind of a dumb kid. He's also one of the people that came out back before marriage equality that came out as part of the Obergefell decision of saying, I see there's this statute here. As Attorney General, I'm not going to enforce it because just morally I'm opposed to it. I don't think it's right. To me, that those facts together it's not to give him a pass, but it's an indication of moral growth, and the fact that he actually seemed sincere from what I read of his apology for being involved in that when he was in high school. And then we have Fairfax, was it Lieutenant Attorney General, who came out kind of
Lieutenant Governor.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant Governor, who came out, my understanding, initially sort of virulently against his accuser, and then backed off and was trying to be nicer and this and that.
He still adamantly said it wasn't me.
Yeah, he's very.
But he wanted to turn around and say, "Please don't get mad at her."
Don't get mad at her, but it was not his initial position. It was to be
I know his initial position was no, fuck that.
Was more attacking, yes.
Yeah.
And he sort of backed off on then, like, let's be respectful because she's accused and da da da. Probably in the face of Kavanaugh and a lot of the things that we've seen come down the pipe. So my position, based on honestly reactions more than accusations of anything, and even presuming guilt in each case, is the fact the governor is a tone deaf fool who seriously who's so out of touch with what he's professing to be a champion of that he can't be effective in his position. I think for that reason,
I mean, you see, like, I don't know.
Attorney General,
very incompetent.
He's extremely incompetent. Attorney General, I think, has been at least sufficiently contrite about what he did, and has shown essentially moral progress.
I mean,
so I'm more willing to give grace in that.
in
in
the
that
Attorney
case.
General, or sorry, not
And
the-
Fairfax, I think he should take like some kind of administrative leave or whatever. There should be a full
Well, I mean,
investigation.
they should investigate it.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
gonna say,
Investigate the absolute shit out of this.
in all fairness,
That's my position.
And you know, we have a lot of pushback saying comparisons to Kavanaugh.
Yeah. It's the obvious corollary.
And but the thing with that is that Fairfax admits that she performed oral sex on him, and he just says it was consensual. Kavanaugh claimed that shit didn't happen at all. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never even known any of these women, whatever. Fairfax said, yeah, no, we hooked up in this hotel room, and this is what it was.
But neither claim can be corroborated. Really,
well, sure,
right?
but I
Tim has something to say.
Go ahead.
No,
Tim.
and my wife, she's back home in Japan, so I'm gonna have to jump off. I just wanted to give my 2 cents.
Please do.
Time. They're 14 hours off, so I guess she's now waking up and everything. Yeah, I mean, again, I have the personal view and the political view. My personal view is, you know, I interpret this the same way as the Kavanaugh thing. It's like the delay in reporting and all this makes me a little skeptical, and I think that, you know, it has to be investigated. I mean, if you make an allegation of that kind of serious crime, it has to be investigated, absolutely. But I don't view this substantively different than Kavanaugh. I don't like, you know, the Republican voices that are saying, you know, off with his head, so to speak. That makes me upset because what were you saying about Kavanaugh just 3, 4, 5 months ago? And then the other side of that, you know, with the, you know, just looking at the news stories on the second accusation, I think is Miss Meredith Watson, I believe is her name. You know, it's a very different type of coverage than was given to Dr. Ford and others. And so I think
what is the second person allege?
She says that at 2000, while they were both graduate students at Duke, some more of a straight up forcible rape is the allegation.
Oh, wow.
Now, it has come out that I think she alleged that she was also raped by a basketball player, college basketball player. She was at Duke. So, I mean, you know, I'm not here. I don't know enough.
And like, was she?
No, I mean,
well, I mean, how do you?
it sounds like a Michael Evan Hottie. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to be tongue in cheek with that either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because we don't know. I mean, that's the thing.
I feel like the reaction from the Democrats has been highly muted in comparison to the reaction of Brett Kavanaugh.
I mean, I think there should be an investigation into him for sure. Like, there shouldn't not be. Like, with, you know.
Yeah. And but now politically, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hog. I'm gonna have to jump off. But I think from a purely political standpoint, the Democrats really need Fairfax to resign because they run the risk of looking two-faced on the issue from a pure politics standpoint. And with, you know, the Kavanaugh hearings was the Democratic Party definitely went all in. And I think that if they appear now, it may be good for the Democrats that this is 2 years away from the general election. So maybe it's not a national story by the time we get there. So those were my thoughts. I mean, you know, that was just kind of my perspective. I think there is a bit of a double standard on this one in comparison to Kavanaugh, but I'll try to.
So I disagree to a certain extent, just because I truly hope that people aren't as dug in as I fear we may be. And I mean that in the sense of, like, I think that this is a good learning experience. One of the things that my husband has brought up, you know, is just some dudes are going to make mistakes from their past. They are going to come up in a certain environment, you know, where they were exposed to horrible things that they thought were acceptable and everything. And it's come out that that they've done something in their past, but, you know, the reaction shouldn't, you know, he's like, let's maybe not ruin their lives, so to speak, in the dramatic sense, but also, like, let's work on, you know, not doing the one strike you're out. And I think that this conversation came up whenever Matt Lauder, I think it was his name, the host of you know, he was like the head of some network or something, and
Matt
he
Lauer.
was
Matt Lauer.
yeah, and he resigned immediately. And you know, like, okay, like if he did something wrong, like clearly, you know, but like also like we need to, you know, adjust to these growing pains of society. All right, we recognize this is wrong. We also recognize that, like, you know, we need to you know, like assist in the growing pains of people, just because the reason why it's wrong and people are experiencing it is because there was a degree of, you know, like it's been institutionalized and desensitized for so long that we need to start teaching people what is and isn't wrong. Like, you know, like, no, this is, we need to like not like, and not crucify someone because they need to learn. You know, and
Yeah, I
also
mean,
this
this was
also goes to degrees.
2004.
Yeah.
And it all goes to degrees, of course, like depending on what actually, like, like that statement isn't made to any specific case. I'm just saying that, like, you know, so I just hope that, like, and it's hard to get undug from your dug in position, because it means having to accept that, like, you know, like that means having to accept like your own flawed and look in the situation, admit that you weren't completely right about stuff, you know, self-awareness and everything. So yeah, you know, like everyone's gonna resist doing it, but I do, you know, I don't know, that's my take.
Okay, so I want to go to
Well,
John
I'm
and
gonna
then
have
to
to
Mike.
jump off real quick.
Oh, yeah.
I
Okay,
apologize,
sorry.
gentlemen.
Okay, but yes, Tim,
Tim, thank you for joining.
thank you for
us.
joining.
Thanks for letting me join in. Okay,
Absolutely.
y'all. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Take it easy,
good to
brother.
talk to you guys.
So the thing that I find is interesting here is that, you know, how far we've come from when Bill Clinton was in office, and he was, you know, he was basically impeached over a consensual affair. Now, you know, obviously, you're not, you know, it's not good to lie to your wife, you know, have an affair, that sort of thing. But that's a whole different level from what some of these other people have done. But now we're at a point where Republicans generally seem to say, I don't even care anymore. I don't care about anything except the issues that that a politician stands for. I saw somebody say that the other night. As long as we have small government, it doesn't matter. It you know, it doesn't matter. Politicians can do whatever, and that seems to be this you know, Republican. That seems to be their new take. Whereas the Democrats are, you know, definitely taking the high road, and you know, who was the guy that played Pat on Saturday Night Live? What was it?
Oh, Pat, the androgynous one. Oh man.
I don't remember who
No,
played it, but I know what you're talking
I know
about.
It wasn't Pat. It was Deep Thoughts with whoever, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Dang,
the,
what's his name?
Deep
Wasn't that guy that got
Thoughts.
shot by his wife
Oh
for cheating?
God, I don't know.
Oh, Hartman, Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman,
no,
yeah.
not Bill Hartman. He was a senator. He was a Democrat.
Oh, Al
You're
Franken.
talking about
Al
Frank.
Franken. Yes, thank you.
Oh.
Right. So Al Franken, you know, did something kind of stupid, right? That, you know, and just immediately
He got crucified.
Yeah.
messed up and resigned immediately. So, and that's great. We totally have the moral high road, but
Yeah, but
at the end of the day,
So
that's
fucking always, right?
you know, that's one less vote. And if Republicans are saying, you know,
if I could weigh in just for half a second,
Go ahead. And then I wanna go to
this
Mike for real, 'cause
It's
he's
like
been
it's a
quiet for a
burning
while.
issue with me is that Bill Clinton was not impeached for catching a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky. He was impeached
For lying
about it and coercing witnesses to lie about it under oath in several different proceedings. He lied about it. I believe in congressional testimony when he was, or maybe no, he didn't actually do that. He lied about it under grand jury testimony. He coerced several witnesses to lie about it.
Well, I think that was I think what was proven was that he lied to a grand jury No, because he didn't do
No,
a grand
he didn't.
jury.
Yeah,
He didn't do
exactly.
yeah.
Everyone. Oh, he forced everyone.
No, it was caught whenever he did that interview with Ken Starr. Ken Starr
But
caught him in a lie.
but also not just that.
I don't want to get into the weeds on that. Go ahead.
Sorry, he forced others to lie, and he coerced other witnesses to lie. That was the main problem. That's why he was disbarred. I mean, that's what he was impeached over.
Okay.
It wasn't just that
Right.
he had the extramarital affair. It's that he misled multiple
What was it he
bodies
lied?
under oath with subpoena power. That he misled them.
So and at that time in history, that time in the U.S., that was I guess sort of the best option he could come up with. At this point now, we have a president who is so immoral, has lied about so many things, has had all of these affairs, and now you have Jeff Bezos, who also has had an affair, but definitely took the moral high ground and said, now he's not a politician, which is why he could do this.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering now if the world is changing, where if somebody makes a claim about the president or whoever makes a claim about a politician and says you've had an affair, and they say my personal life is none of your business. We're not. I haven't raped anybody. I haven't done blackface or whatever. And I know that's a little bit different. We're sort of
why is the bar set low these days?
Well, I mean,
right.
but I mean, but I have to. But I kind of have to
judge me on the job I'm doing. I haven't been abusive to anybody. I haven't broken any laws, and my personal life is my personal life. Is that the world we're now in? Where
I mean,
I want to go to Mike. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, there's 2 points that come to me, and one was kind of touched on by Tim briefly. Was I mean, it's obviously a point that the Democrats are going to have to make. As I mean, I always hate to group a party together, but I mean, again, going back to Kavanaugh, I mean, they really went all in, doing everything they could to say Kavanaugh should step aside, he should step down, blah blah blah. And obviously he didn't, and things move forward anyway. So it's almost like a fork in the road where do we stick with that same mindset of there's accusations from somebody who is credible, and do we push for them to resign or get him out of office or not? That's tough. Or they could I mean, you could have a few leaders say, look, we went too far with Kavanaugh. That's our bad. We've learned our lesson from that. I don't see that happen. I don't see either happening really, but it from the American public point of view and from a political point of view, that's a fork in the road that's going to be really tough to overcome, because either one, I mean, the Republicans will jump all over it, which again is just a difficult spot to be in. But again, that's kind of what happens when things are so or the political climate is just so hot, that when you go all in on something, it's almost like you have to stick to your guns or risk looking two-faced. And the other thing I got out of these accusations, I don't know too much about the second accuser. I know that she was reportedly raped by somebody else before the alleged rape took place with Fairfax. But the first woman, I looked into her, and I mean, unlike the Kavanaugh hearings, which were coming from only people that were not just left, but pretty far left, the accuser here is not from the right or far right. She's a Democrat, which is a bit different in the really, when it all comes down to it, I stick with what I said with Kavanaugh, which is, I mean, I believe evidence. There should be an investigation. Anytime there's an accusation, there should be an investigation. Just because there's an accusation doesn't mean I don't think you should be forced to step down. I don't think that way. I think there should be an investigation. If the evidence points towards misconduct, then it should be handled accordingly. But just because there's accusations, credible or not, an investigation needs to happen, and you have to believe the evidence. That's my 2 cents on how it should be handled.
Okay, James.
Actually, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I will punt to someone else on this one because I want to see what else develops.
Okay. I guess if I can riff on that a little bit with regards to, I guess, how we look at this in reflection of Kavanaugh, I think actually the fact that I've heard and seen sort of well-rounded and overwhelming calls for, say, Northam, at least in this case, to resign over his handling of this thing. I find that to be, consistent with what are considered to be, democratic values. The Democratic Party is a Big Tent party. We're supposed to be inclusive, anti-racism, anti-bigotry of all kinds, really, as whether or not you find that, particularly virtue signaling and annoying. Like that's sort of where we sit, right? And the fact that he treated this in sort of a mealy mouse softball kind of way, I don't think many are buying that. And I've seen pretty strong calls for him to step down. He said he's not going to do it. He thinks that he's still there for the best interest of Virginians. I think he's going to be completely ineffectual. I don't think there's a legal avenue to remove him, really, other than maybe a vote of no confidence. I don't know if that's going to be, if there's much.
Are you talking about the lieutenant general or the?
I'm talking about the governor. Governor. So I'm talking about Northam there. And then with regards to the sexual assault allegations, Mike, I generally agree with you that there needs to be an investigation here. I don't necessarily see a double standard. And maybe you want to push back on that. I don't know what other people are saying with regards to this one necessarily. I haven't done as much research into it, but I think I'm not discounting the accusers. I don't necessarily find anything non-credible about what I've heard from the accusers, just as is in the case with Kavanaugh. And it just comes down to what can we believe based on testimony when it comes out in the investigation. I listened to and I don't want to completely relitigate the thing, but when I listened to the entirety of the Kavanaugh hearings with regards to Ford's testimony and his, I'm convinced Kavanaugh completely perjured himself on a number of points, and I don't find his testimony at all credible. And that's not the case with Ford. And if I saw a fact pattern consistent with that, with regards to Fairfax and his accusers and Fairfax himself, I would come to the same conclusion. Just because one's accused in two separate instances, I don't look at them as parallels necessarily. You have to look at the fact patterns that are relevant there.
Well, and I think that's a common misunderstanding too between these two situations, and it's. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Let me put my thought all together.
Yeah,
to make sure.
I apologize. I was on the same end too, as that I was having trouble keeping track of my thoughts, but you've kind of put me in my.
I mean, well, but it's not that we've dug in on the fact, like, they haven't with the Kavanaugh thing. People weren't dug in on the fact of if you get accused, you should not accept this promotion. And actually, maybe that is kind of not a bad general rule, though. But to make it completely parallel, if you're accused, you have to step down from this. So this guy, if he's accused, he has to step down. That's not the issue that they dug in on. The issue that they dug in on is like, you need to investigate all of these allegations.
Yeah,
right. And I think there's an important thing here. I think that gets missed very, very easily because of the era of essentially, punditry and clickbait headlines that we get involved in. That Democrats don't look at, or at least no Democrat that I know, look as the accusation as equivalent of a conviction of some crime or some miscarriage of moral behavior. Like, it's not literally the same thing. Just because the person's been accused of something, you could make spurious accusations of anybody at any time. But it's the fact that when those accusations are investigated, if they're found to have merit, that's when the apparent parallels of left and right misbehavior. That's where that breaks down for me. And that's when I see it's prevented. And I wish Tim was still here, because that's what I wanted to address. Let me finish real quick. That it's not a double standard. It's holding the same standard. It's just actually paying attention to what the facts are in the situations.
And regarding the concern that happened here, and this is the thing that I really wanted to harp on, is that a lot of the Democratic voice wasn't about, oh, we believe Miss Ford and all these things, or Dr. Ford and all these problems that were brought forth. The issue was more about no one is investigating this. You know, like she's getting no credibility. The Republican Party doesn't give a shit.
She had to do a congressional hearing in front of the committee.
And they already, yeah, exactly. And they already,
like, she had to do that in front of a national audience in order for them to even pay attention to her.
Exactly. And they already executed the nuclear option, so it didn't matter anyway because the Republicans had enough votes to shit her out. Yeah.
That's
So
why I always remember that line from her testimony. She was throwing her body in front of a moving train that was already going to get to where it was going.
Exactly. And but that's not just where I was going with that, because that's a huge portion of it, is that we had this big thing where Dr. Ford had to go and make herself a sacrificial lamb. Yeah. And it didn't matter because she was going to get screwed either way.
Yeah. You can get rich out of this. Hang on,
wait. Pardon the way.
But then I'm going to go to Mike.
Pardon the way that sounded, and I feel bad about that one.
No, I mean, I think that sounded right. You know, like, just
my issue.
She was the sacrificial lamb, and she wasn't going to get any kind of, like, nothing was going to happen.
Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. She threw herself in front of the train, knowing damn well it was already going to get there.
I don't know. My apology involved the getting screwed.
I'm not convinced that after the whole Kavanaugh hearing is done, and you know, we look at it after the fact, if does the performance, does the behavior of the Republicans or Democrats in the end help or hurt the party more? So, you know, I guess there's an argument that you know, Dr. Ford, yes, it was a sacrificial lamb. Kavanaugh was totally confirmed. It was going to happen. Yeah. And there's this spectacle, the spectacle of, I thought it was fabulous when the woman climbed up and was sitting in Lady Liberty's lap. But there's a spectacle of this sort of unhinged academic liberal, you know, that they play on, right?
I mean, well, we'd also talked about competence earlier with the Virginia governor, and I mean, you know, like, how you're going to how the public is going to react to a news story is how the public is going to react to a news story. But what should define you and your leadership is your ability to handle crises. That's why you're elected. You know, that's why you're put in these power positions and everything. Yes. And you know, if we're going to talk about the Virginia governor's you know, moonwalking lack of competence in handling this situation, you know, what really, you know, so that stupid is as stupid does. What sort of, you know, the red flag that raised me about Kavanaugh was how he, you know, he is not a stupid person, and he lashed out, and that was partisan. And you're a judge. You're supposed to be blind.
Yes, James, yes, Haley. Yes, thank you. I feel like you just passed me the ball, exactly what I needed. Yes, this is where the dunk comes in. This is my entire point. As a conservative, I don't know about these accusations against Kavanaugh. That's really not a big thing to me. My problem is his temperance is terrible. I mean, when he was faced with these accusations, he started throwing things out in front of a Senate Judiciary Committee saying, you know, this deep state conspiracy against me. It's about the deep state. It's about all of these Democrats who want to hang me and want to say all these bad things.
He sounded fucking wackadoo.
Yeah, he sounds like a fucking wackadoo, and that's a problem to me. And
he likes beer.
Yeah. And Haley, you're absolutely right.
Do I, but I don't sound like a fucking idiot after I drank.
Haley, you are absolutely right. I mean, that shit is overboard. It's completely overboard.
Yeah, but put yourself in Kavanaugh's shoes here for just a moment.
Wait. I want to hear what Mike said.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were finished.
I mean, are you still going?
Oh yeah, I'm still going.
Mike,
I can put myself in Kavanaugh's shoes. Except I can't, because I've never been a DC appellate judge. I've never been to that level at all in my career in the slightest. I have never worked in a federal courtroom in my life. Ever. Only in state courtrooms. I'm nowhere near what Brett Kavanaugh has done with his career.
But have you done a cake stand?
Yeah, I have. But I'm also not
I'm
also not a dipshit. And here's the thing. You are sitting in front of the U.S. Senate. You are answering questions confirmed. You are answering questions to be confirmed. You send people to death. This man has reaffirmed death sentences. Are you telling me he's never taken this so seriously under oath that he's not going to make attributions to the goddamn deep state? What is this QAnon dumbass bullshit? And I'm sorry.
On the Supreme Court.
I know I'm bloviating.
On the Supreme Court.
You are trying to be on the Supreme Court of the United States, and you actually brought up the deep state? Fuck you. You shouldn't be on the Supreme Court, and I'm making it now. And I'm sorry.
Whether or not
I know.
Okay. Yes,
but he made it. But he's there. That's the reality. Is that he's on the Supreme Court?
He's on it.
He's on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly.
Matters now. He's there. He made it.
Him. And I'm sorry. I'm mad about this. I don't care about the sexual assault claims. I know.
You should.
But this is really important. I do care.
Because I think they're valid.
I mean, I don't care if they're valid or not.
I mean, you should believe women. You should investigate these things.
Yes.
The thing is, Ford was screwed because she never got a good investigation. That was the issue that was dug in on. And for here, same thing. Investigate it. Investigate the claims.
Every level you just said, Haley, is absolutely correct. Yes, they should have investigated. They were not. Even when we got a half-assed investigation, they were really investigated.
They weren't. As someone who works in this field, who does this kind of work,
they weren't investigated.
The explanation of what they did was y'all did a half-assed. That's
but
not.
My point, and what upsets me the most, is that this man got one woman's testimony without any investigation, and he lost his shit, and he went straight into some QAnon.
Yeah, I mean,
nonsense.
he just seems unstable.
Yeah, exactly. And that man's on the Supreme Court now, and he's parroting something that came from Reddit as a joke.
Dude, he's parroting Hannity.
Not Hannity. I'm talking about the deep state stuff. Deep
like 4chan and shit. Yes.
Their words were made up by 4chan.
So I've heard that we're unique in the world in that the Supreme Court nominations are for life.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry, guys. I want to apologize.
Apart from impeachment,
but that stuff really,
which I think should still happen. I think you bring up a valid point. I feel like we're digging too far into relitigating what happened with Kavanaugh. I want to bring us back into the present here because, well, that damage has already been done. We're going to be looking at it for the next 3 decades.
Still real
that's how
about it.
As am I.
But it is what it is.
We got to move on. Let's get back. Mike, you were trying to say something earlier. If you've retained that thought, I would love to hear it.
When I said just put yourself in Kavanaugh's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, going back to what and kind of looping this back around as you are as well is, obviously when it comes to Supreme Court nomination, so to speak, during the investigation, their handling of questioning is obviously going to be considered when it comes to their confidence or no confidence. But bottom line is, it still comes down to what's the evidence, and that's really what it comes down to. So, you can get somebody who's accused of murder, and they're a gang member, and they're caught with a bunch of guns, and they're covered in blood, and it's not the victims, but they clearly messed somebody up, and then the only witness is somebody who is drunk or stoned all day, every day, and they're in and out of jail, and they've been caught lying to cops and everybody else 100 times. Most defense attorneys can get that guy off because there's no credible witness, there's no evidence, there's no location, there's no time. And obviously I'm twisting it from the credibility aspect to the lack of date, time, and all that aspect of it, but there's still no evidence as to what happened. And with Fairfax,
if someone sees someone covered in blood over a dead body, that's no evidence.
Well,
I was about to say,
I actually said that in Fermenting Opinion not too long ago. I said, you would think that's a slam dunk. Well, what if it was actually somebody who found the body or somebody who was attacked by somebody else.
Sure.
Point being is that it should still come down to the evidence that's presented, both
Yeah,
Kavanaugh and Fairfax. It's what's the evidence.
Well, and let's talk about. I mean, again, this is where I get really upset.
Guys, tonight is not about relitigating Kavanaugh. I no. Let's stay.
Well, it's not about that. But just like what do you think evidence?
Like what do
people think based on a Kavanaugh comparison? Yeah, this is where I'm getting at. Is that evidence?
We're talking about whether or not we're being consistent in our approach to each one.
We are, and this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about evidence.
I don't want to get too into the weeds.
This is not consistency.
So when we say evidence, we're talking about the rape case, right?
In this situation,
well, no. So like what's the evidence and everything? But like
it's
if you walk in to a room and you see someone who's been murdered and someone standing over his body covered in blood, that's evidence that person killed that person.
Sure.
And then we could later they do like the other tests. That's also evidence. Like that maybe he didn't.
Testimony is going to be evidence too. If that person's covered in blood, they can say, "Hey, I've been trying to save this person's life for the last."
Yeah, it's all about like what, so let's make sure that we're all on the same page of like what actually evidence is.
And when we're talking about the testimony that was brought forth, I'm sorry, but I'm I don't want to relitigate the Kavanaugh thing either.
I mean, there was evidence.
I don't know if I don't know if I believe Kavanaugh or Ford or whatever.
Who cares? There was still evidence there, though.
Yeah, I agree. There is evidence there because both of their testimonies are direct evidence from different sides. I mean, that is the definition of evidence. Evidence is testimony. Testimony.
But so like
one person is believable.
You
one person is not.
And like, of course,
we're conflating two different things. There's a criminal, a criminal trial, and the processing of that, and the evidence for that, and the outcome of a criminal trial, and then there's this investigation when somebody is either wants to.
That's exactly right.
Or is already in office, and then this informal investigation happens, and you know what? If you're in office, and you say,
it's almost like the bird.
Who cares? I'm not stepping down. Go ahead and impeach me. Then you could.
There's a greater weight of the evidence that's going to determine the ultimate outcome, depending how far up the ladder you go.
Because it's not a criminal trial. It's going to be if you can get. It's very difficult to impeach a politician. Right, you have to.
It has to be pretty damning.
Right?
But it's not that. It's not necessarily that. It's that like, okay, you commit a crime and then you're caught and the police charge you. That's like one level of administration. Whereas to remove someone from office, you have to like first get, do like a mini trial to this group of people, and they have to allow it to go forward to this next group of people that have to allow it to go forward. There's a few levels of bureaucracy that it takes to actually, whereas you and I as individuals are caught driving drunk, we are then convicted by the state. Like that's the only level that they have to go through of proof. I mean, but it is a high burden of proof, but they just don't have to go through those layers.
Well, I mean, that's absolutely right too when it comes to, I mean, obviously testimony is a big part of the evidence, but the other big parts too is, the location, which this accuser with Fairfax apparently has, a date, which apparently has, I don't know if she has any witnesses or people that she's talked to about it, but all that would be brought together during this, rough investigation, however you want to put it, and that's the evidence that is going to have to be weighed. I mean, not just the credibility of the testimony, but also, was this person here at this time? Were there these witnesses here at this time? Are the witnesses credible? Are they telling the truth as well? All that gets put together, and then at that point, that's when the decision is going to have to be made. Is there enough evidence to impeach or not? And as John said, impeaching a politician is very, very difficult. I mean, there would have to be some
right. I think the argument would be, say, hey, if there's a crime, go charge the person in the courts, with the crime.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that with politics. You have to go through you have to exhaust your other remedies first. It's like the legal turn of art.
Well, as long as it has to do with their job in office. If it has to do with something in their personal life, if it's suspected that a politician has murdered somebody in cold blood, then you don't have to go through the process to impeach them. They can be indicted. I believe, and maybe there's not precedent for
But
that.
yeah, it depends on what the charge is.
Yeah.
Like if they're murdering someone, it's one thing. If you're trying to remove them because you think they're incompetent because of them lying about something they did in the 80s, that's a different thing.
It's not just
you're not charging
incompetence,
them
it's
with
just-
murder. Like that's
It's whether, if I can jump in, it's not necessarily just incompetence or a crime, but whether or not an elected official has done something that their electorate is finding distasteful.
So it is an
right?
actual criminal
You
charge.
can say like, oh, is this person guilty of sexual assault or murder or whatever? Like, yeah, there's an avenue for that. But like, what if they're like into like German Scheisse films? Like, and you're like, this person's disgusting, right? Like, I don't.
What if they, dressed in blackface
what
in the 80s?
Like, exactly. Like, that's not a crime to be a racist piece of shit, right? It's not a crime.
But if
it goes against what you believe and what your values are and and the reason why you voted for that person. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing to myself about the German.
Yeah.
But like it's gonna take a few more. It's gonna take a few more procedural hurdles to jump to remove someone for wearing blackface in the 80s than it is for someone who murdered someone in cold blood.
It's not a crime. There's not an accusation of some criminal activity here. It's not necessarily.
I think a lot.
It's going to take longer.
This is actually a great question, and I missed the comparison to murder, but someone that I knew very well actually was in a New York Times article recently about this, that he was convicted of murder. And then he went to Tulane Law School with juxtaposed to me. After he got out of prison, he got into Tulane Law, and he went there. And then the question became, should the Louisiana bar allow him to be a lawyer?
Yeah, they have an ethics board, right? You
Yeah.
have to go.
Oh, yeah,
and-
no.
Oh, man.
I'm
You
not
have to list so
saying that
much shit.
you. I'm
It's
saying that for
ridiculous.
people who may not know.
It's
No, they call every living relative you
we
have.
have it's not just the I mean oh holy shit.
This situation actually came up. I'm from Louisiana, but this situation actually also came up in Texas. So anyway, but I'll let you know how Louisiana did. I'm sure it's great.
I'm also from Louisiana, by the way. So
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Mardi Gras.
South
You're in
Louisiana
Texas,
or
right?
North Louisiana?
And you're in Texas now, right?
I am.
Are you
Yeah.
from South Louisiana or North Louisiana?
I'm from Lake Charles.
Okay, you're south of 10.
People.
Yes, Southwest.
Yeah,
seriously.
I am southeast.
Oh, okay.
But the point here is that we can all agree that there's rehabilitation to things.
Sure.
And I think
Wait, but how did Louisiana resolve the murder thing?
oh, he's a lawyer now. Not only that, but he's actually
Yeah.
not only is he a lawyer now, he's actually a badass in a different field. I'll look up
In,
the New
in
York Times
Texas,
article.
they
I'll tell you
made
what,
an exception if
if
you
you
like
are-
murdered like the only thing was like if you murdered your family to get a will, that was like an ethics thing, but like I don't know, there was a few
No,
loopholes.
that still exists.
People have murdered people in Texas for like Wild West happened here.
But in all 50 states, that's an issue in a different realm. But in Tennessee specifically, if you murdered somebody to be part of a will or something,
Right. Let's
you're
get this
cut
back
off
to
the will.
Virginia, though,
But
okay?
then that's what I'm getting at. I'm sorry. Is that
It's okay.
oh shit,
My fault.
you failed me. But
I'm sorry.
But either way, it's fine. What I'm saying is that people can obviously be rehabilitated depending on the situation. And it goes a long way. I mean, it goes all the way from did you wear blackface to have you murdered somebody? It just depends on the situation.
Okay, I guess those are sort of disparate situations, but I guess
I mean, it's,
I guess the common thread is whether or not I guess if you've murdered someone and paid your debt to society, so to speak.
sure.
Okay, but I think the important thing for voters and people who might want to support the governorship of Northam or who have you, like whether or not there's at least some convincing display of contriteness and of growth from whatever that whatever that violation of moral standards happens to be. Like, I guess if that's what you're getting at, I can follow that a little bit. Like, so to recap, and I kind of want to go from here to everybody on the panel.
We should probably start wrapping this up.
I think it's time to wrap up a little bit. Yeah. In Northam, I would say certainly not the case. In the case of the AG, that seems to be the case, and in the case of Fairfax, the lieutenant governor, that's a big question mark. I think there needs to be an investigation. I think that evidence needs to be weighed just very much as what Mike had said, and we need to weigh that testimony. And that is my position, and we'll be moving forward. Sure. Haley, you go next.
No, I echo that. I do think that you have to consider the totality of every single circumstance. I think that we should all recognize that the investigations in Kavanaugh were insufficient, and we should have done better. And I hope that we, follow through with that by investigating the Democrat who's been accused of it. Of course, we should investigate this.
Absolutely.
That's the issue that I'm dug in on, and I'm not mad that I'm dug in on. So it's not about someone stepping down or not taking a promotion. It's about actually seeing what we know, seeing what we can figure out. Whenever someone is going to have the guts to come forward, because it does take guts to come forward and accuse someone. Sure, there are publicity stunts, but more likely than not, it's very hard for a woman to do. We should give them the benefit of the doubt and at least acknowledge and look into their stuff credibly. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree with that. John?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, I think that we're moving into a time where hopefully it's easier for women or for anybody to come forward, and it's not always women, especially in the in these situations with the churches, with the Catholic or the Baptist church, but more than often,
yes,
more than often, I would say it is women. I would say I think we would be better off altogether if, especially women, if they could come forward and feel safe and in the courts, not always in the political arena, but just in the courts when this happens, to start to get to the bottom of things, but when it becomes political, you can almost figure it out with a spreadsheet. If there's a certain number in one party, then whoever's going to get confirmed, the lawyer's going to.
And that's why I think that people, need to recognize, like everyone included, let's stop trying to weaponize this. Everyone, men and women, for political gain, and let's just stop doing that.
Right, because that seems like that's actually is the argument that's hurting the Democrats.
It's not hurting Democrats; it's hurting women.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. That's a good point.
And anyone can be talked into doing whatever if they think whatever if they start getting tribal and think about parties and sides. But at the end of the day, we should investigate. We should investigate assault allegations. We should investigate sexual harassment allegations. We shouldn't crucify men. We need to start getting better at our punishment, and corrective active. We need to do better and do that. But also, we need to investigate.
Gotcha. I want to move on to Mike. What are your final thoughts, sir?
I think with the lieutenant governor, definitely needs to be an investigation, without a doubt. I think both women should have the right to testify, and I think between the testimony and evidence presented, it should be presented to the House of Virginia, and they should be able to weigh the evidence, let the public, weigh in as well, and decide what they want to do based on what they find out. In regards to both the governor and Attorney General of Virginia, I don't know if they have the ability to have a vote of no confidence, but if they do, that's the route I would take. I mean, I think maybe he should step down, but I think they should at least have a vote on whether or not they're confident in their ability to lead after the blackface and clan outfit picture and everything. Let's just say I'm glad I live in Tennessee instead of Virginia right now. That's for sure.
It makes me so sad to agree with you. I loved looking down on Tennessee for years and years as someone who came from Virginia growing up. But I have to agree with you. Seriously, like Tennessee was my Mississippi, but damn it. And James, you're gonna get the final word.
I would
No,
like
the
to
person
say
from Louisiana is laughing at the Mississippi comment.
yeah, and actually,
He gets it.
someone who was a resident of Louisiana for like 10 years, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Thank God for Mississippi.
Your mama.
And also Tennesseans, we shit on Alabama, so we got Mississippi.
He gets it.
These homies. But seriously, on the Virginia governor aspect, bro, I have no idea what you were doing, but it's time for you to go ahead and step away. I'd get out of there. I don't know what the hell you were doing, but your career's over as far as a politician. I mean, Jesus. Anyway, Justin Fairfax, lieutenant governor, allow them to have their investigations. If you didn't do anything wrong, you didn't do anything wrong. Go ahead and follow the Kavanaugh route. And if all else fails, you just get indignant and hope.
The Kavanaugh route was insufficiently investigated, just so that's clear.
Yeah, I understand. But go ahead and follow the Kavanaugh route of, hey, let everybody do whatever they want to do.
What's the deep state? That was the Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I'll just
right?
be indignant about it.
Right.
And just say it's a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah, let's not start making it the Kavanaugh route.
Anyway,
That's
James finish. Let James finish.
But point is, I would let, if I were Fairfax, I would let them investigate, see what happens there. The AG, I don't know what you were doing, bro. I don't even know why you got yourself involved in this, but
maybe he wanted to fall on his sword
honestly,
a little bit. Maybe
honestly,
I don't know.
Good on you on fessing up.
He just freaked out.
Maybe.
Yeah, but good on you on fessing up. That's
Yeah, no, I think he's probably fine. I think he's probably fine.
Just sit where you're at. Don't do anything else. And for the love of God, please don't wear blackface or do anything else.
But that's do anything else. Don't wear blackface.
Yeah,
It seems unlikely, but yeah.
Exactly. However, I'd say where I'm at.
It seems like that one would
I don't know. It really depends on what happens with the other two. I think I'd sit and watch. I'm proud of you for coming up to the plate when you didn't have to and just being like, hey, by the way, guys, actually, I'm pretty sure in my past I screwed up too. Good move, man. Good move.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You did a great job. That's about as far as you can go with it. Just chill out.
Do we have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is all final thoughts at this point.
I think
This
so.
is sort of
I'm pretty much done at this
wrapping on this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with it. I think AG gets a little bit more grace for basically coming forward to talk about being stupid when he was in high school versus other people trying to, play, I had the ball with it. And
he's kind of like, hey,
politics.
I know that I'm next in line.
What's going on? Yeah.
By the way, I screwed up too.
But he's not being reactionary. He's being like prophylactic,
Yeah, exactly. Kind of this idea that, hey, by the way, you're probably going to hear about this at some point, but I screwed up.
Yeah, and sort of the final thought is like, I don't know anybody who didn't act more or less like a prodigious dumbass when they were in high school.
We all have skeletons in our closets.
I certainly do.
Something
it's really
questionable.
interesting. I had a conversation maybe about a week ago with a very good friend of mine talking about things that I had said and done when I was a young person that I am currently and actively ashamed of ever thinking or feeling or expressing out loud, like to the point where I wouldn't even want to say it where I'm being recorded. I'm that embarrassed of the person I was at the time. So like, and it's that embarrassment and that shame that's caused growth in me as a person. So like, I can acknowledge that. And I would encourage that in people. I don't want to shame people for being, shitty and less than they should have been in the past. It's whether or not really, I think that the thing that's important is whether or not you're owning that as an adult and trying to grow versus trying to hide it and deny and dismiss and play all these games like we see, which is, has become part of politics. I think that needs to be separated. And really that's my final thought on it. And at this point, I think it's a good time to wrap. I think we've all given our thoughts on what's going on in Virginia. Virginia, man, you guys got a lot of work to do. You're embarrassing me. I live in Tennessee. I like to talk down to Tennesseans. I can't do that anymore. Get right. Virginia, please.
Well, hey guys, thanks for inviting me to this. This was great. This was
John, yeah, thank you for
It was
joining
great
us.
to have you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to include you in more stuff. I was just about to, prop our own stuff. This is, we're fermenting opinions. We do a podcast where we've been a little bit on hiatus because I'm in the middle of a move. But we're going to have some content for you on the podcast feed that you can find on, iTunes and Stitcher and all the places you can get your.
And we have a YouTube channel.
We have a YouTube channel which is currently broadcasting on. That we're fermenting opinions on YouTube as well. You can check.
So subscribe to it.
Yes, please subscribe. Yeah, John, please subscribe. We also have a public page, Facebook page, and private group for discussion. If people don't want their ugly fermented opinions to be broadcast.
So I've begun putting stuff out on YouTube, and I have a number of Facebook groups that I try to work with, and I have a couple sort of big things that I'm about.
Cool. Tell us about yourself.
One of my big things is the potential of using cryptocurrencies, but more specifically blockchain, to create sort of a new distributed way for us to communicate with each other, so that we're not dependent on things, on these companies.
I hear it. Yeah. And seriously, come back and talk to us about that more, because I hear a little bit about that.
I would love to have a show.
It's worth investigating more. I think we've done a podcast or two that sort of with Thom Gray and was it Liberty Radio or whatever it was. He kind of was into that a little bit. But happy to take another look at it. And seriously, stick around. Check us out. Like I said, we're on Facebook primarily. Also YouTube, also on the web is fermentingopinions.com. Please subscribe, follow, do all the things. You can learn about us. And John, please come back, man. Yes, we are on Twitter.
We're getting it started.
We do have a Twitter handle.
I need to start tweeting. Almost. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So definitely, I'll do the multimedia solution.
Absolutely. And thank you, John, for joining us. First time being part of the ferment. Mike, you are a regular and prolific a friend of the ferment. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Are you completely fermented at this point?
Absolutely.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike.
So yeah,
I agree that Mike is one of our favorite prolific fermenters.
Absolutely.
So thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you all.
And
Mike, we appreciate you. Haley, charter member of the ferment. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
James, my co-host, myself, David Papaiden.
I'm James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions. We will see you guys next time. Y'all take care.
All right. Thanks.